Millionaire shocked to see female beggar caring for her daughter for the first time. Alfred Johnson, the titan of Wall Street, living high above the chaos of New York City in his gleaming penthouse, never expected his life to twist into a story ripped from the tabloids. But that afternoon, as rain hammered the pavement below and neon signs flickered in the misty haze, he found himself staring wide-eyed at something or someone that shattered every notion he held about control and destiny. Across town, near a worn subway station smeared with graffiti and buzzing with restless shadows, a woman sat huddled on a cracked bench. Her clothes hung loose, dirt-smudged and frayed, her hair tangled like the wild branches in a forgotten forest. The city's rush ignored her, save for curious glances. But it wasn't just her presence that moved through the air. Cradled in her arms was a little girl, no older than 7. Small, fragile, with eyes that flickered like distant stars. Lily seemed his chest tightened until breathing felt like a dare. For years, he thought he knew everything. Deals, power games, enemies, allies. Yet here was a raw, jagged truth, slipping through the cracks of his flawless life. Later, in the stark brightness of his penthouse, he stared at the DNA test, hands trembling, the paper blurring under his tears. Then came Sarah Thompson. On the other side of town, in a dimly lit apartment, Sarah knelt beside a wheelchair. Her voice was soft but steady, full of an urgent kindness Alfred wasn't ready for. When he hired her, her questions cut deeper than any business rival ever had. "You can't just protect her, Mr. Johnson," she said, eyes sharp. "She needs to feel alive, to fight." He recoiled. He wanted safety, order, not chaos or hope. But Sarah didn't back down. She worked tirelessly, pushing Lily to reach, to speak, to dream. The city roared around them as nights turned sleepless, hopes rising and crushing in waves. One evening, the penthouse was filled with a thick, exalted silence. Lily, her breath shaky, her muscles clenched tight, stretched out a tiny foot and stepped. 1, then 2. Alfred's world jolted. Joy slammed him into disbelief, a rush so fierce it almost hurt. But fear tangled in his gut. What if she stumbled? What dangers awaited if he let go? Before he could answer, a shadow fell on the edges of their fragile happiness. Whispers of Sarah's past murmured through unseen corridors, shadows darker than before, secrets knotted deep. Alfred's trust wavered, turning icy. Could this caregiver, this fierce champion of Lily, be something else entirely? As the night closed in, uncertain and heavy, Alfred watched from the doorway. Outside, the city lights flickered, the distant sirens weaving a haunting lullaby. Then, without warning, the sharp knock came, cold, deliberate. A stranger's silhouette appeared beneath the stained glass of Sarah's door, and Alfred stood frozen, heart pounding, wondering if, in his desperate fight to protect Lily, he was about to lose everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like. That helps me a lot with the algorithm. I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. The knock shattered the charged silence, echoing through the penthouse like a gunshot. Alfred's breath caught, heart racing as he moved toward the door. The shadows outside twisted and shifted, a stranger looming just beyond the glass. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. "Who is it?" he called, voice wavering, but tight knot of fear twisted in his gut. "Open the door, Alfred," came a low, commanding voice. It felt both familiar and terrifying. He hesitated. A chill numbed his fingers as he reached for the handle. What if it was someone from his past? Someone hell-bent on destroying everything he had built? But duty pulled him forward. With a hefty push, he swung the door wide. The man standing there was tall, draped in shadows. Rain dripped from his coat, pooling on the floor like a gathering storm. "Mark," Alfred gasped. Mark Mitchell, his business competitor turned sworn enemy, stepped inside, the air thickening with unspoken tension. He didn't glance at Alfred. His eyes flitted past him, landing on Lily. "I know about her," Mark said, his voice low and grim. "This isn't a game, Alfred. You have to listen to me." At the mention of Lily, Alfred's pulse quickened. The warmth in his chest froze over. "What are you talking about?" Mark's gaze hardened. "You think you can just swoop in and play the father? You have no idea of the forces at play here." Alfred stepped forward, feeling fury bubbling up. "You have no right to barge in here. Get out, now!" But Mark continued, unyielding. "If you want to keep her safe, you need to know the truth. Sarah isn't who you think. She's been leading you on, using Lily as a pawn in a game much larger than you realize." Alfred's mind raced. He had trusted Sarah deeply. Could what Mark said be true? "You're lying. She's been nothing but good to us. Is that what you believe?" Mark's lips curled, a smirk tinged with malice. "Take a look behind the curtain, Alfred. She was working for me before all this. She was meant to retrieve a valuable asset. Your daughter is the key to something big." Alfred's heart sank. The walls seemed to close in, the vibrant city life outside becoming a dull murmur. A painful lump formed in his throat as he stumbled back. "You're insane. She loves Lily." Mark stepped closer, his intensity burning through the haze of denial. "Love doesn't matter when the stakes are this high. You need to open your eyes before it's too late." Before Alfred could respond, a loud crash echoed from the back room. Lily's soft whimper broke the charged air. Alfred spun around, dread washing over him. "Stay here," he shouted to Mark, instinctively moving toward Lily's direction. The darkness in the hallway loomed, yet something blazed within him, an urgent need to protect his daughter. But as Alfred rounded the corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. The chaos deepened. Lily was gone. In her place stood Sarah, face pale, shaking slightly, but not just from fear. Clutched in her arms was a small silver device, pulsating with energy. "Sarah," Alfred faltered, "what have you done?" Her eyes widened, the weight of her secrets crashing down around them. "Alfred, That was when everything fell apart. Without warning, the silver device emitted a blinding flash, enveloping them in a whirlwind of light. Alfred's body trembled, panic clawing at his throat as reality began to fray at the edges. In that moment, an urgent voice echoed in his head, louder than anything he'd ever heard. "The truth is more twisted than you know." As the light crashed over him, all he could do was brace himself, heart racing. When the light faded, everything was different. The room shifted, shadows morphing around him. Where was Lily? Where was Sarah? And as he searched, a chilling thought crept over him. What if the truth Mark hinted at was only the beginning? What if everything he knew was just a layer hiding a much darker reality? The night stretched ahead like a deep, disorienting abyss, and he was standing right at the edge. The room twisted and turned, shadows flickering like faulty lights. Alfred felt disoriented, his heart racing. "Lily? Sarah?" he called out, voice laced with panic. The emptiness echoed back, a deafening reminder that he was alone. Then, slowly, figures began to emerge from the shadows surrounding him. Familiar faces, but so altered, like reflection in a broken mirror. There stood Mark, expression sharper than ever, and beside him, Sarah. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of guilt and desperation. "Alfred, this isn't what you think," Sarah shouted, hands raised in a placating gesture. But even her stance felt hollow, as if she could no longer convince anyone of her innocence. "You knew him," Alfred accused, clutching his chest. The air felt heavy, and each word dripped with betrayal. "You both set this up. You were playing me from the start." Mark smirked, the darkness behind him swallowing light. "You never did see the whole picture, did you? This is bigger than you, bigger than your precious daughter." "Stop!" Alfred's voice cracked. "Where is Lily?" "What did you do?" Sarah began, her voice quaking. "It was never just about her. It was always about you." Confusion laced his thoughts. "What do you mean?" Then the world shifted again, as if swiping a blank canvas to reveal a hidden mural. "You're not just a Wall Street titan, Alfred. You're part of something darker. Your past isn't just buried, it's running this city." A cold realization seeped through him. "No, that can't be." "It can and it is," Mark interjected, advancing closer, the shadows thickening around him. "You've shielded yourself from the truth for so long, but now it's coming for you." "Just tell me where Lily is," Alfred shouted, each word a desperate plea. "Your daughter is safer than you think," Sarah said, her voice low, almost mournful. "But her life is tied to the truth of who you are, the truth you refuse to accept." "Stop it," he yelled, but somewhere deep inside, a darkness flickered to life, questions igniting. What did he really know about his life, about the relationships he'd built? Alfred felt his knees weaken, his world fracturing with every revelation. The silence thickened, wrapping around them like a shroud. In that moment, another crash resonated through the penthouse. The walls shuddered. A tremor of urgency flooded the space, drawing their attention. "Something's wrong," he yelled, instinctively reaching for Sarah, pulling her toward him. But as he did, the air shimmered, crackling with energy. The device in Sarah's hands reacted, pulsing ominously. "Alfred, brace yourself!" she cried. But it was too late. The device emitted a blinding wave of light, engulfing everything. As the brightness faded, he stood in a completely different landscape. Empty streets, a sky painted in deep hues of twilight. But the weight in his chest hadn't disappeared. It had transformed into a marbled confusion. "Where is this?" he whispered, a tremor in his voice. "What happened?" "Welcome to the real world," Mark said, stepping into view, a sly grin plastered on his face. "This is the truth you've been running from." Before Alfred could grasp the enormity of it all, a figure appeared before him, face obscured by shadow. But there was something hauntingly familiar about the silhouette. It stepped closer, and he froze. Then the figure spoke, voice like a distant echo. "Father." His heart stopped. It was Lily, the girl he had fought so hard to protect. Yet she wasn't the small, fragile child he remembered. She stood taller, radiating a strength he could barely comprehend. "Lily." The words slipped from his lips, but it broke under the weight of disbelief. "What have you done?" he gasped, heart racing as his world unraveled. "Everything is about to change, Dad," she said, her voice steady, eyes blazing with intensity. "And the time for hiding is over." And in that moment, every belief Alfred held on to shattered. Everything he thought he knew about family, love, and safety crumbled around him, like dust in the wind. As the darkness swirled around them, he felt one undeniable truth slice through his confusion. He had not only been protecting his daughter, he had been protecting an entire legacy he never knew existed. The stakes, now higher than ever. And he was being pulled deeper into a world he didn't understand. "Lily," Alfred breathed, desperation clawing at him. "What is happening?" But she just stood there, unwavering, as the shadows loomed closer, enveloping them all. The last flicker of light vanished, leaving behind a chilling whisper that lingered long after it was gone. "It's time to wake up." The shadows danced around them, flickering like restless flames. Alfred stared at Lily, confusion swirling in his chest. But before he could reach out, a low rumble rolled through the ground. Alfred's voice cracked, panic creeping up his spine. The street beneath them heaved, sending vibrations through his feet. Then, without warning, the ground split with a deafening crack. A fissure snaked its way across the floor, stretching wider and wider, dust rising up like a choking smog. Fragmented shards of the penthouse fell away, and with a heart-stopping gasp, Alfred grabbed hold of a nearby wall to steady himself. Lily's expression shifted. Her eyes widened, then, filled with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Dad, we need to go, now." But before he could respond, the room lurched violently. It felt like they were on a sinking ship. Alfred swayed, adrenaline coursing through him, but his focus was solely on Lily. "What's happening? Where do we go?" "It's not safe here," she shouted, her voice rising over the chaos. "The truth! It's breaking free! We have to escape!" Suddenly, Sarah lunged for the device in her hands. "No, don't!" Alfred yelled. But she was too quick. With a frantic movement, she pressed a button. Light exploded in the room, casting harsh shadows that danced on the walls like writhing souls. A piercing scream pierced the air. It was Mark, a strangled sound escaping his lips. "You don't know what you're doing," he bellowed, eyes filled with pure terror. Then, in a blinding flash, the floor beneath Mark erupted. A swirling vortex opened up, swallowing him whole before he could even react. Alfred's heart raced as he watched the very ground collapse under his enemy. Mark was gone, utterly erased from existence. "Sarah, what's happening?" he pleaded, eyes darting between the remnants of the room and the tightening shadows around them. But Sarah was trembling now, her gaze unfocused. "We need to go, Alfred, before it's too late." Her words were breathy, edged with desperation. Before he could gather his thoughts, a figure stepped into the dingy light, the silhouette of a man, tall and ominous. He emerged from the swirling chaos, face still hidden beneath the shadows. "You think you can escape the truth, Alfred?" Each syllable sliced through the chaos, pinning Alfred to the spot. This voice, it sent chills down his spine. "Who are you?" he gasped, feeling a tight knot form in his throat. The figure stepped forward, the light revealing features Alfred recognized too well. Father? Time itself sought a halt. A ghost from the life he thought he'd left behind. The man he had believed was dead, consumed by the darker sides of power. Only now he stood before Alfred, eyes blazing with an intensity that twisted reality. "What? How is this possible?" Alfred stammered, disbelief fueling the tremors in his hands. "Just as you have awakened the truth in Lily, it is time for you to awaken to your own legacy," his father said, voice steady as a storm. "You were never just a businessman, Alfred. You were born into power, and now it's time to embrace it." Lily looked between them, confusion swirling in her gentle eyes, as panic constricted Alfred's chest. "No, this can't be happening," he shouted, stepping back. The world around him seemed to tilt, reality unfurling under the weight of unimaginable truth. "Do not run from what you are," his father's words echoed in the thick air. "You are meant to lead, not hide." Suddenly, an icy grip encircled Alfred's heart. The pit of his stomach twisted. "Lead? By destroying everything and everyone?" His father's gaze hardened. "Sacrifices must be made." And with that, the room erupted once more, new darkness spilling from the depths of the breaking ground. Out of the chaos, a torrent surged toward them, a monstrous wave of energy that promised more questions than answers. "Lily, run!" he screamed, but the words fell flat against the roar of impending doom. As the tempest engulfed them both, Alfred realized he had lost everything he thought he knew. In this swirling chaos, the stakes had shifted yet again. And as he was drawn away, the last thing he heard was Lily's terrified cry, the sound spiraling into the void. Then, nothing but darkness, an emptiness that left behind only echoes. What had he signed up for? The darkness pulsed around Alfred, wrapping him in a suffocating embrace. The last echoes of Lily's scream faded, leaving only a haunting silence that filled his chest with dread. He tried to speak, to call out for her, but the air felt thick, like he was trapped underwater. Where was she? Panic surged through him. "Lily!" he shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of his fear. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, each thud a reminder that time was slipping away. And then, just like that, the shadows began to shift. A flicker of light broke through, expanding into a warm glow that surrounded him. The void started to pulse with vibrant colors, swirling together in an otherworldly dance. Alfred squinted, disoriented, as the brightness grew, blinding him momentarily. But as the light dimmed, he was no longer alone. The room transformed, shifting from chaotic darkness to a serene space, like a dream unfolding slowly. Glistening walls, like glass, reflected a strange sort of brilliance. And then he saw them, figures standing in the distance, bathed in that extraordinary glow. It was Lily, but not the Lily he remembered. She was taller, her hair flowed like silk around her shoulders. This version of Lily had an ethereal quality, an aura that whispered of power and wisdom far beyond her years. "Dad?" she called softly, an undertone of urgency mixing with concern. "Lily, is it really you?" His heart raced, hope swirling within him, but shadows of doubt lurked at the edges. She stepped closer, distress etched across her lovely face. "I'm here, Dad. I need you to trust me." Before he could respond, another figure materialized beside her. It was the man in the shadows, his father. But now something was different about him. The intensity of his gaze was gone, replaced by an unfamiliar softness. "You've awakened her," his father said, voice steady, yet filled with an emotion heavy enough to bring Alfred to his knees. "What are you talking about?" Alfred demanded, confusion clouding his mind. "Why are you both here?" Lily's eyes shimmered. "This place, it's a bridge between what you knew and what you still have to learn. It's a revelation, Dad. A choice. You have to decide what side you're on." Suddenly, a loud crack split the air again, shaking the floor beneath them. The ground trembled violently, and Alfred stumbled, gripping Lily's arm for support. "What's happening?" Desperation clawed at him. "Time is running out," his father shouted, urgency slicing through his words. "They're coming." Before Alfred could question what that meant, a blast of wind rushed through the room, sending their hair flying. Figures emerged from the chaos, shadows morphing into tangible threats. Men and women cloaked in darkness. "You don't have to do this," one of them shouted, a glimmer of barefaced anger behind their mask. Alfred turned, terror gripping him. "Who are they?" Lily balled her fists, defiance lighting up her eyes. "Our enemies. They want you to fail." His heart sank. It all felt so wrong, like pieces of a puzzle he couldn't quite fit together. "But I thought I was protecting you." Then, a figure detached from the others. A woman with striking features emerged, stepping into the light. Alfred's breath caught in his throat. It was Sarah. But she looked different. Her eyes gleamed with a fierce intensity. "You were never just protecting us," she said, voice cold as ice. "You were being manipulated." A wave of betrayal crashed over him, and he staggered back as the realization washed over him. You are using me." "Not just you," she continued, stepping closer, determination etched in her face. "We're all connected, Alfred. And now you must decide, join us or stand against us." But before he could make sense of it all, the shadow surged forward, diving in for him, reaching out with darkened hands that clawed at the edges of his sanity. Fear consumed him, and without thinking, Alfred lunged forward, reaching for Lily. But in that moment, the ground beneath them split open, revealing a deep chasm that pulsed with light and darkness alike. Lily screamed, reaching for him, but he lost his grip as she slipped from his fingers, her body tumbling into the abyss. "No!" Alfred howled, despair ripping through him. Everything shattered in a matter of seconds. Their world, their connection, all spiraled out of control. In a heartbeat, they were gone. The only sound left was Sarah's chilling laughter, echoing through the broken remnants of his reality. The truth stood naked before him. He had been a pawn all along, and now what remained of his family was slipping away into shadows he couldn't outrun. Alfred fell to his knees, realization crushing his spirit. Everything he thought he knew, the fight, the love, the hope, had been orchestrated with shadows dancing at the edges. He wasn't just a bystander. He had been thrust into a game with higher stakes than he could imagine. And now, lurking in the shadows, the true battle for everything he held dear was just beginning. The shadows churned around Alfred as he knelt on the floor of what was once his penthouse, but now felt like a twisted dreamscape. The heavy silence pressed on him, thick and suffocating. He could still feel Lily's presence in the air, but the crack beneath him was a gaping maw, devouring everything he thought he knew. Sarah's laughter echoed in his mind, a dark reminder of betrayal. Why? He pushed himself upright, uncertainty clawing at his gut. "Why did you?" "We need you, Alfred. Not as an outsider, but as a leader. A true leader." Before he could digest her twisted sense of loyalty, the ground shook violently again. The shadows seemed to reach for him, clawing at his very essence. "Lily," he shouted, but his voice cracked, desperation uncoiling within him. Distant murmurs filled the room, voices whispering secrets that clawed at his sanity. "Let her go." Mark's voice cut through the cacophony. He appeared from the shadows, now more monstrous than before, his glare seeping with malice. "You're fighting a losing battle, Alfred. You think you can save her?" "Shut up," Alfred shouted, clenching his fists. "I was never in this for power. I just wanted to protect her." But as he spoke those words, the very fabric of their reality twisted again. The shadows surged forward, swallowing Mark in a sudden wave. Alfred's instincts screamed at him to move, to escape, to find Lily. Then light erupted. Not just any light. This was a blinding burst. It felt like the sun had risen in the heart of chaos, illuminating everything around him. Alfred shielded his eyes, disoriented, and when he could finally see, he stumbled back, breath hitching. "Lily?" He blinked, processing the impossible. Where there had once been a deep chasm, lay a path of shimmering light, leading upward. And standing at the edge of it was Lily. But this wasn't the delicate girl clinging to hope, nor the fierce warrior who had momentarily appeared. This version of Lily sparkled with an unimaginable power, a force both terrifying and beautiful. "Dad," she called, a voice echoing not just in the air, but in his bones. "This is your chance. We can change everything." "Change what?" he whispered, confusion blurring his thoughts. "Everything you've ever known. Everything you've ever wanted," she insisted, extending her hand toward him. "You have to trust me now more than ever." But before he could respond, the shadows lunged. They twisted into a multitude of faces, men, women, and children, each one familiar. Alfred felt the room close in, recognition hitting him like a gut punch. No, no, it can't be. Not the old faces of loved ones long gone. These were the memories he had buried, the pain he had locked away. His mother, his sister, they stared back at him, eyes hollow and accusatory. "You thought you could escape?" His mother's voice rang out, both sorrowful and vengeful. "Lies won't save you," his sister chimed in, her laugh haunting. Alfred staggered back, turmoil swirling in his chest. "I tried to protect you, and look what it's cost you." The shadows shifted, morphing into a sinister tidal wave that surged toward him. "Get away!" he screamed, the terror clawing at his throat. But just as it felt like all would be lost, Lily interceded. "No, this ends now." Her voice erupted with authority, flaring with a brightness that cut through the darkness. Alfred watched the shadows recoil. But just as they did, a piercing vision shot through him, flooding his mind. An image like a knife, Sarah standing beside him, a smirk of triumph. Everything he had thought they shared was merely a trap woven from deception. In that split second, the revelation hit him harder than the shadows ever could. "No, you were after Lily all along. You knew she was the key." But just as the realization gripped him, a rush of wind filled the room, and darkness coiled around Lily. "It's not over," she shouted, but the shadows grasped, pulling her into the abyss. "Lily!" Alfred reached out, the horror of watching his daughter vanish again etched in his heart. He had lost her, and yet it felt like she had transformed into something greater, something beyond him. Then the light that had emerged flickered, moments hanging in the balance. In a sudden flash, a second wave of realization washed over him. It wasn't just about Lily, it was about him and the legacy he had never wanted. His form shifted, energy crackling. "I have to end this," he gasped, understanding dawning. There was a chance to pull Lily back, to confront this truth head-on. It felt like the only way to reclaim everything he had lost. But just then, the shadows dove into him, and a voice rumbled within, familiar, yet foreign. "You're not just Alfred Johnson. You're something much greater." The words echoed, resonating through his core. The essence of power took hold. And in that moment he understood. Everything he had fought against was rising within him. With a roar that shook the very foundations of the shattered world around him, he embraced what he truly was. As the shadows clashed with the blinding light, he felt the lines of his identity blur. And then, all turned to light. Stepping into the unknown, Alfred stood not just as a father, but as a force redefined. He had reached the edge of everything, and there was no going back. But who would rise with him, and who would be left behind? The uncertainty loomed larger than ever. The light surged around Alfred, wrapping him in a cocoon of warmth, igniting his spirit and promising power. He felt a part of something bigger than the chaos, a chance to reclaim Lily, to forge a new reality. But just as the overwhelming energy pulsed through him, it recoiled like a startled animal. "Dad, listen," Lily insisted, her eyes wide, shimmering with a mix of fear and fierce determination. "This isn't just about fighting shadows. It's about what they're bringing with them, what's lurking beneath." Before he could fathom her words, the air grew thick and heavy, a strange rumble vibrating beneath their feet. It felt alive, thrumming with suppressed energy. He opened his mouth to speak, but the ground shuddered violently. "Hold on!" he shouted. But then the floor split like a brutal wound. A chasm opened wide, darkness swirling in its depths, a gnawing abyss that promised despair. And then, just when Alfred thought everything would fall apart, a figure hurtled through the air, arms flailing, a desperate, familiar form. It was Sarah. But something was wrong. Her eyes gleamed with an eerie light, a fractured calm in the storm. "You think you've got it all figured out?" she yelled over the chaos, her voice ringing with something that sent chills down his spine. You're just a pawn, Alfred. This is all a game, and I'm the one holding the pieces. What? Panic clawed at his chest. You? What did you do? The realization hit him like a thunderclap, shattering the moment. His heart raced, doubt gnawing at the edges of his resolve. You've been manipulating us all along? Not just you, she replied, drawing herself up, every inch a villain in a dark play. Lily is the key, but she's not the only one. You don't realize what family means in this world. The chasm roared beneath them, shadows clawing up through the widening crack. The truth churned, forcing its way into the open, and the silence throbbed with dread. Alfred's mind reeled. Family, what does that mean? His heart pounded, every beat a reminder of what was at stake. He wanted to trust, to believe in the connections forged in battle. Yet here stood someone he had admired, a friend now revealed as a deceiver. I'm her mother, Sarah said, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper, yet echoing in his bones like a death knell. Lily is my daughter, and I will reclaim her. Breathe. The words tangled in the air, sharp and jagged. The floor trembled as shadows surged closer, whispering secrets of betrayal and kinship that churned in his gut. Alfred staggered back, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him like concrete. You can't be serious. You were never even... How could you let me believe? But in that moment, the darkness beyond the chasm twisted, coiling and stretching like a predator ready to pounce. The air hummed with warnings, the shadows a cacophony of gnashing teeth and desperate cries. Trust me, this can work, Sarah pleaded, but the urgency in her voice rang hollow. It felt like a last attempt to salvage the chaos they'd created. Enough. Alfred roared, resolve hardening within him. The shadows hungered, and in their depths lay the truth about his past, his father's legacy, everything twisted around love and sacrifice. He could no longer hold back. As the ravenous darkness lunged, Alfred channeled the storm inside him. Light surged again, but not just his. It surged from the very core of the room. The shadows screamed, recoiling, but Sarah lunged forward, her hand outstretched as if to embrace him. Don't you see? If you fight against it, it will consume you. We are meant to rule together. In that breathless moment, propelled by a desperate need to save Lily, he grasped the truth. He couldn't trust her. Not now. Not ever. The truth struck hard as the ground cracked beneath Sarah's feet. Rael, she shouted, an echo of a name, so familiar, it sent a chill racing through him. Help me. But the name meant something else. A dark connect. This was it. This was his moment to reclaim everything. The shadows shrank away, a distant echo, replaced by his daughter's unyielding presence. He took a step forward, heart pounding. Lily, he shouted, reaching for her. But as their fingers almost touched, the ground heaved violently again. Suddenly, a blinding flash erupted between them, a brilliant explosion of color and energy. Alfred shielded his eyes from the brightness, feeling as if the world was tearing apart at the seams. The air crackled with raw power, scenting the atmosphere with charged electricity. "Look out!" Lily cried, her voice tinged with an urgency that shot through Alfred like ice. He turned in time to see shadows surging toward them, morphing into a swarm of writhing tendrils. They moved like a living wall, dark and insatiable. In an instant, everything changed. Just as the shadows were about to engulf him, reality warped around them, flipping upside down. The world twisted, bending like a funhouse mirror. A pulse of energy surged, sending a shockwave through the air. Trees bent, glass shattered, and when the chaos finally settled, Alfred blinked and realized he was no longer in the penthouse. The room had vanished. They found themselves in a familiar space, a room from his childhood home. The walls, Worn and frail, echoed memories of his past, the warmth of family dinners and laughter, but now cast in a haunting light. "What? How did we—" he stammered, disbelief flooding over him. "I don't know," Lily replied, looking around in confusion. Her eyes widened, suddenly locking onto something behind him. "Dad, look." He turned to see Sarah, standing there but changed. The shadows that once surrounded her now flowed like smoke, morphing into a dark mist. Her expression was no longer tainted with betrayal. It was solemn, almost otherworldly. "Sarah?" he inquired, stepping back. Confusion twisted in his gut. "What happened? Where are we?" "This is where it all began," Sarah said, her voice smooth, yet echoing with sorrow. "A bridge between realities. We don't have time for your anger. You must listen." "What do you mean?" Alfred gripped Lily's hand, a protective instinct blooming. "What's happening here?" "Alfred, you're more than you realize," Sarah insisted, her eyes glistening. "You are part of a legacy, and so is Lily. Every step you've taken has led you here, to uncover the truth." "Enough of the riddles," Alfred snapped. "I just want my daughter back. What are you hiding from me?" The atmosphere thickened, tension rising like a storm about to burst. In that instant, reality shattered once more. Stretching like an elastic band, words spilled out, almost against Sarah's will. "You think you know the truth, but you don't. You are not the only one who's been manipulated. Lily." She hesitated, something shifting in her expression. "Lily is the key to everything, yes, but more than that, she holds the memories of those long gone." "What are you talking about?" The shock hit like a physical blow as the fragments of understanding fell into place. "What memories?" "Your mother, your sister. They're still here, Alfred. This place, this reality, preserves them." Alfred's heart raced, breath catching in his throat. "What are you saying? That connection you feel? It's more than just blood. It's legacy." As Sarah continued, her voice dropped to a whisper, a chilling revelation floating between them. "You're not just their son. You're the manifestation of their dreams and nightmares. They've always been here, guiding you." Sudden dread washed over him. "You mean they're alive?" "No," Sarah said, shaking her head. "They're trapped. In you. You have to decide. Will you embrace them, or will you let everything that is you fade away?" Alfred staggered back, shock freezing him in place. The realization hit him hard, sinking deep into his bones, an icy anchor weighing him down. But in that moment, a figure materialized, faint but familiar, a specter from his memories. And as the room flickered, a face emerged. Not just a face, but his mother's. "Alfred," she whispered, her voice a soft caress, mingled with sorrow. "You can set us free." "No!" Alfred cried, the weight of her presence overwhelming. Everything shattered again, pulling him deeper into the current of his past. He felt his heart breaking in two. Lily squeezed his hand, her eyes calling out to him. "Dad, please. We have to choose, before it's too late. Would he embrace this twisted legacy and save them? Or would he decide to break free from this haunting past?" The shadows lingered. The burden of choice hung thick in the air, a promise of chaos beneath promises of hope. And in that moment, everything blurred. Memories and ambitions wailing for attention as darkness danced enticingly on the edge of reality. What had he truly unleashed? And more importantly, what would he sacrifice to unravel the truth? The room hummed with tension, shadows looming low as Sarah's words hung in the air like heavy fog. Alfred felt the weight of history pressing down on him, memories flooding in, tangled with grief and yearning. "They're still here, guiding you," Sarah echoed, and the realization slammed into him like a freight train. His mother's ghostly face loomed larger, her expression a mix of sorrow and pleading. "You can set us free," she murmured, but the words cracked under pressure. Doubt seeped in. He clutched Lily's hand tighter, more afraid of what the truth could reveal. The shadows quivered beneath their feet, threatening a surge that could swallow them whole. "No!" Alfred shouted, panic clawing at his throat. "This can't be real!" "Don't fight it, Alfred," Sarah yelled, desperation carved into her features. "You're more than just a pawn. You can break the cycle." Lily's voice broke through the chaos, strong and unwavering. "Dad, we need to choose, before it drags us under." He turned to her, confusion etching deeper lines into his face. "What do you mean? Choose what?" The ground trembled violently again, a deep rumble echoing through the walls as darkness clawed at the edges of their reality. Then it happened. A crack that split through the fabric of the room erupted with blinding light. It enveloped them, swallowing everything. Alfred shielded his eyes, heart racing, hearing laughter, unearthly, almost cruel. When the light faded, they stood somewhere different, a room steeped in shadows. Cluttered with old furniture and forgotten photographs, faded walls lined with memories, faces he almost recognized. Anxiety washed over him. "What is this place?" he whispered, dread curling in his chest. The air felt different, thick with anticipation. "That's the past, Alfred," Sarah said, her voice distant, like a radio farting static. "This is where everything began, and where everything ends." In an instant, a figure emerged from the shadows, moving with the grace of a predator. Alfred's heart stopped. As it stepped into the weak light, he gasped. It was his father, or who he thought was his father. "Father," Alfred stammered, his head spinning. You were dead?" The man smiled, but it was cold, hollow. "Not dead, just waiting for you to awaken to your true destiny." "What are you saying?" Fear gripped him. "Everything you thought was real is just a construct." The shadows shifted, swirling like smoke around his father. "You were chosen, Alfred. Like your mother before you. You are the key to our power, not some victim." "What power?" Alfred's voice trembled, rage igniting within him. "I don't want that. I just want my family back." In a heartbeat, everything shattered. A wave of darkness surged, the photographs cracked, the walls shuddered, and suddenly, memories spilled out like confetti, swirling around them. Alfred could hear whispers, voices of people he'd lost, shadows of regret and sorrow intertwining in a pantomime of their history. "This isn't a curse, it's a gift," his father shouted over the chaos. "You have the potential to bring about a new order." "No," Alfred screamed, feeling the jagged shards of memory cut into his soul. "This is a lie." But then, before he could react, a piercing scream erupted from Lily. The shadows twisted in a whirlwind, engulfing her whole, her terrified face the last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed her. "Lily!" he shouted, heart racing. "No!" Panic surged, and as he reached for the darkness, the world shifted once more. A sudden rush of air slammed into him, and before he knew it, he was thrown backward into a sprawling expanse of shimmering void. In the depths of that swirling chaos, a flash of light broke through, illuminating a shocking truth. There stood Lily, but she wasn't alone. She was entwined with another figure. Tall, imposing, with dreadlocks that danced in the light. It was a being he recognized from his childhood, a distant yet familiar presence. His sister, lost to time, merging with Lily, wrapped in an ethereal glow. "Alfred," she cried, a haunting smile on her lips, "it's time to let go of the past, time to embrace what you truly are." The ground beneath him split again, an abyss yawning wide, and with it came this realization. Everything he fought for was woven into a tapestry of his family's secrets, and the startling truth coming to light might not just change his fate, but the fate of everyone he loved. And as the darkness spiraled closer, all he could do was hold on. Hold on to hope, to confusion, and to the unsettling possibility that everything he thought he knew was just a thread in a bigger story yet to unfold. The ground shook one last time, and Alfred felt it deep in his bones. It felt like everything was spinning away from him, shadows threatening to swallow him whole. He shouted, the name echoing in the hollow space around him. She was still there, still glowing with that ethereal light, caught in a dance of memories and shadows. The figure of his father faded into the background, but his mother's face remained vivid and bright. Make the choice, Alfred, she urged, her eyes filled with a mixture of love and pain. You can be the link between the past and the future. Alfred's heart raced. I don't want to be a pawn in anyone's game. His voice trembled with anger and desperation. But deep down, he could feel the pull of destiny tightening its grip on him. Lily's voice was a beacon amidst the chaos. Dad, I need you to believe in us. We can break free together. Her eyes shimmered, echoing both fear and hope. Every moment stretched between them, each heartbeat a reminder of everything that had led to this. Shadows swirled, reaching, clawing at the edges of his sanity. He fought against the tide. They could not take her from him too. Please, don't let fear win. Lily's words broke through the din. They wrapped around him, pulling him back to the light. As the dark tendrils lunged, without thinking, Alfred stepped forward. He couldn't run any longer. He couldn't hide. With a deep breath, he raised a determined hand, each pulse of energy crackling against the shadows. I choose to embrace you, he shouted. But not as a weapon. You will not define me. The shadows recoiled, shriveling back, their sinister whispers fading away. There was a moment of silence, an expansive breath hanging in the air. And then, light erupted. It filled every corner of the world around him, engulfing them all. Alfred felt the warmth wash over him, the memories of his mother and sister merging with Lily's brilliance. A light swirled around them like a protective cocoon, enfolding them in radiant security. Suddenly, the figures of his past dissolved into a cascade of shimmering particles, floating into the ether. Thank you. His mother's voice lingered, soft and fading, until only silence remained. Dad, Lily cried, eyes wide with wonder, as they stood together, engulfed in the aftermath of brilliance. We did it. But just as she spoke, a light of hope, resilience, and a bond that could not be broken. As the remnants of chaos faded away, Alfred and Lily stood together in a new understanding of their world, hands clasped tight. They were ready for whatever may come. A world awaited them, filled with all the mysteries they had yet to unravel. But this time, they would face it together. And the shadows? They whispered in the wind, but they were only echoes of a past that would no longer define them. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to show your support. You must subscribe now to catch the next exclusive story. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Flood the comments with your thoughts, reactions, and wild theories about this ending. Don't wait one more second. Share this with at least 5 friends who need to know how this story turns out. Your actions are a heartbeat for this channel. Let's keep the conversation going.